that couldn't make it. All right, thank you everybody for joining us today. So this is our broker update, the first one for 2021, and we have a few things we wanted to cover, but I first want to say thank you for Morris Lyles, our SCR 2021 president, plus Nick Kremydas, the SCR CEO and Austin Smallwood with the legal team at SCR, and Candace Thompson all coming, which is our president. Plus we have some board members here from our PRAR team, board members that are joining us today for our brokers. We've got some things here that we're going to talk to you about, but we're also going to give you guys time to ask us questions, any of the team. And at the last half hour or so, or whatever time we have left, we're going to go over the forms updates that we have drafts for that Austin's going to go over for you. So we're going to start with handing over to Nick Kremydas and President Morris Lyles to go over SCR and what's going on at SCR, and I'm going to give them the floor. So Nick and Morris, who wants to go first?
I'll go ahead and start off. I want to thank y'all for having us. We're excited to be here to talk about some things going on as far as what we've got coming up with the Fair Housing Conference, which is going to be April the 13th, and it's from 9 to 12, I think, Nick, isn't that right?
That's correct.
On the 13th, and we've got a good program for everybody. It'll be a good program, sort of talking about what we've done with the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and then also we've got some special guests that are going to be there. So I look forward to seeing everybody there for that. And also, I think Nick and I were talking about updating a little bit with maybe the fingerprint, the Identigo. I always forget the name of it, but Nick, maybe if you want to give a little update about that and sort of where LLR is with that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think Austin, are you planning to cover that a little bit later?
Okay. Yep. I may be jumping
ahead. I think I had that in your portion, but I'm certainly happy to help need be. I got the exciting topic of forms, so.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, I'll jump in. I don't know which is more exciting, fingerprinting or forms. But this renewal cycle, all renewing licensees have to be fingerprinted as part of the renewal process. And LLR has contracted with a company called Identigo. And Identigo is, if you've ever gotten your TSA pre-flight check, where you can kind of skip the security lines at the airport, it's the same process. You've got to go, two things. Do not go get fingerprinted if your license is not set to renew this year. Check your pocket card. Find out if you're due for renewal. If you're not due for a renewal, don't worry about it. Forget about all of this until next year. But the commission just sent out emails this weekend, this past Sunday, to all of those that are renewing, and it's your responsibility to make sure the real estate commission has your correct email address. Now that email address doesn't have fancy formatting or anything, so it would be real easy for someone to accidentally delete it or think it's spam. But check your license card, and if you're up for renewal, check your spam or your trash for that email, because you should have got it. And they'll have detailed instructions on how to go online and make an appointment with Identigo to get the fingerprinting set up. There is also the need to make sure you've got your CE done. So you've got to have your 10 hours complete this cycle as well. The commission is working closely with us. They've been very, very responsive. They understand, they've obviously been impacted by COVID. Their employees they only went back into their office this week after working remotely for a year. And despite their best efforts, they've had a lot of challenges with COVID that have slowed them down, and getting this fingerprinting up and running has been a real challenge, because primarily because SLED hasn't allowed us to open up the date any sooner than this. We're fortunate that we were able to work out. We've been asking for months to open the renewal cycle early. And what they've compromised on is allowing the fingerprinting to begin now. May 1st is the normal kind of opening of the renewal dates. The commission will start processing those applications, renewal applications then. I believe yesterday, what the commission offered a little bit of a reprieve, Austin. What was the update from yesterday's commission meeting?
Yeah, so essentially, and SCR is going to be putting out a video early next week that's going to detail all this. So if anyone in your office wasn't here today, you'll be able to give them that information. Be something certainly as brokers to send out to your licensees, because as a broker in charge, you will not be notified that your associated licensees have not done their fingerprinting or education. You're sort of responsible for following up with them. You will not also be notified if they have any sort of license status change. But they essentially understand there are about 30,000 individuals are going to have to roughly are going to have to get fingerprinted between now and June 30th. That's not obviously with COVID restrictions, very not highly likely to happen. So they have said get everything done as possible by June 30th. Get your application in, get your fee paid, and then answer the 2 questions about your CE and your fingerprinting as honestly as possible at the time. With the fingerprinting, if you have not gotten your fingerprints at the time, as of June, it's June 20th, you haven't been able to get a fingerprint appointment, go ahead, submit your renewal, check the box that no, you haven't gotten your fingerprinting. They are working on getting a prompt on their electronic renewal that will essentially say, that's okay, but you need to have one done by the 31st of December. At the end of the year, they're essentially going to pull a query of everyone who was supposed to renew and whether or not they have done their whether they have paid their due, paid their renewal fee, send in the application, done their CE, and done their fingerprinting. If you have not done any of those, then that's when a license status change will occur. But if you have not renewed your license as of June 30th with the state, you should not be practicing real estate because you would be practicing on an expired license. So get your application in by June 30th. Try your best to get a fingerprint and done by then, either on your own or through some of the partnerships we're doing with your local board. But if you're not able to do that, still get the paperwork in, but to get that fingerprint scheduled as quickly as possible.
And so we've had some members that are kind of freaking out because they may have something in their history that they're afraid is going to get flagged from this criminal background check. And if you like the fella in Spartanburg, if your criminal background check pulls up that you recently raped or murdered or kidnapped somebody, then yeah, probably your license is going to get flagged and pulled. If you were caught speeding or doing something in college, maybe that involves some substances that probably aren't okay to do, then probably you're safe. This isn't going to address old issues, things from your past. The purpose of this law came about 3 years ago as a result of that very serious, mass murderer situation up in Spartanburg, and it's I think it's going to continue to raise the bar of professionalism in our industry, and keep real criminals out of our industry. I don't know of any profession that you can enter, only spend a few $100 and get a license and join a local MLS, and suddenly you've got access to thousands of homes. Well, in a normal market, you'd have access to thousands of homes. Our inventory is a little short.
Say, where is that market?
Right.
I'd like to go there.
But any questions on fingerprinting or license renewals?
Hey, Nick.
Yes.
Hey, this is Alex Dewey up in Fort Mill.
Yes, sir.
Pete and I actually got the email, signed up, and it's pretty easy. They've got the test center for us in Rock Hill, and it only takes about 10 minutes to do everything. And that's your background and scheduling a time for your fingerprinting. So, I mean, I certainly would recommend doing it as soon as possible, but ours is even still in the month of March, our appointment. So
Well, good.
it's gone
Yeah.
crazy yet.
We're encouraging people to sign up early so we avoid bottlenecks, and because I don't know how, yeah, and the realtors in your area may be different than realtors in other parts of the state. But I know of some realtors that wait till the last minute to try to get all this stuff done, and it'll create bottlenecks. And by doing that early, just like you said, you can avoid it. It's quick and easy. There is a cost. It's $50 plus some change. But you only have to do it once every 3 license renewal cycles. Is that correct, Austin?
Correct. Yeah, it'd be every third cycle. 2 other things that we got a lot of questions on the hotline. If you've already gotten your fingerprints for some other license that you have, or for like a concealed weapons permit, that does not cross over. This has got to be a completely separate fingerprint. So don't just assume because you've been fingerprinted for something else recently those fingerprints apply. And also, I know y'all are right on the border. If you have a licensee in your office that is a non-resident licensee, there's going to be a slightly different process for them. The commission's actually going to be mailing them out a fingerprint card with instructions that they have to do. So their process may be a little different there. If you have any questions on that, give us a call on the hotline. We can try to help you out.
It's a good point. Good point, Austin, with them being right. Y'all are right up there near the line. So that's true.
Okay. Well, if there are no other questions, let's,
Nick.
yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hey, it's Elizabeth Walker. Just a question. How are we tracking every 3rd renewal cycle? Like, what's the best way to track that?
Next question, please.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't, Elizabeth, I'm not sure. I would expect common sense would suggest that the real estate commission, as a way of checking that on your file, and in 6 years, your next renewal, it'll indicate that you need to get fingerprinted again. As far as individual records, Austin, did that come up at all yesterday in the meeting? That's a good question.
So that has not come up. Personally, I think the commission is super laser focused on just getting through this renewal cycle, that they haven't been able to look at future renewal cycles. But we have gotten some questions on the hotline about people who have had to go back because they've had some issues or things of that sort. So definitely keep something in your records that you went to Identigo, that you got your fingerprint, get some sort of receipt. So should something happen in the system and that query pops up in December 31st that you didn't get your fingerprint, but you did, make sure you sort of have some documentation. So you may want to keep something for your own file, along with, your status that you send in your license. Keep all those documents together in case something pops up. And then you can sort of internally track that, hey, I did my renewal on my fingerprinting in 2021. So in 2027, I'm going to have to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, that seems interesting to me, because all common sense would think that your fingerprints are your fingerprints. And I'm wondering why they've got to redo it in 6 years. Have they said anything about that, Austin?
All right, go.
It's the background.
It's when the bill, or according to when they were passing the bill, that SLED was, their part of their testimony was that your fingerprints actually will change over time. And so that's part of the rationale behind doing it every 6 years.
Okay. I never realized that. Yeah.
I just want to be clear on this too. So this renewal cycle, only if we're renewing, we get this year's like a baseline. Next year will be a second baseline for next year's renewal. And then 6 years we'll start for instance, I renew this year. And so this is my baseline year, and I don't need to do it for the next 6 years. Yeah. Okay. Just want to make that clear. So I've got.
Yeah, you don't need to do the fingerprints, but you obviously still need to renew every other year. Yeah, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And we'll ask the commission to find out how they're going to track this, and we'll put that information out when we find out.
I mean, ideally, it would be great. I know, Candace, you're licensed. I mean, several of us are licensed in North Carolina. When you log into your dashboard, you can see, like CE information, that sort of thing. So it'd be kind of nice to log in and just double check that we don't need it.
I've got to believe that the portal that the CE broker portal that they're using now would include that. But Austin, let's just make a note to make sure that we remind the commission that's something that needs to be done.
Absolutely. We will do that. And I did want to mention, I'll put this on video. LR did ask yesterday to not call and check on the status of your fingerprints or your education, because like I said, they're not going to pull that query till the end of the year. So don't call them. Keep your own internal records. Know for yourself that you did the correct information, but don't call them for a status update. And SCR will also not be able to give you a status update.
So one final note about that, we reached out to Adenago several months ago as an association, and they offered to set up like local remote offices, kiosks at our local associations that meet their requirements. So we'll have some additional dates and times around the state that'll help alleviate any other choke points in this process. So we just got confirmation this week that Adenago is willing to work with us in that regard. So that'll help our members get this done in a timely fashion as well. All right, so let's change gears just a little bit. Talk about a couple of legislative issues. One that's related to the Real Estate Commission. Lindsay Jackson and Austin and the team have been working on legislation that will empower the commissioners to have more information about an individual's background when they're applying for licensure. Too often in the past, we've seen individuals that have kind of slipped through the cracks that should not be in the real estate business based on their criminal history or past behavior. And it's very, very easy to get a real estate license in South Carolina, as it is in most states. And but we want to also protect the public and protect our industry and those that we serve. And this legislation has passed the House and is now in the Senate. And I'm excited to get that done this year. We're also one other State House initiative that's very important right now has to do with rental assistance monies that Congress has appropriated for landlords and housing providers. Y'all may have read about the December CARES Act package, and the big one that passed just last week includes almost $500 million just for South Carolina, where landlords can apply for funding to cover 12 months of rent, either in arrears or going forward. It includes utilities and other penalties that the tenant may have incurred. The current the current CDC eviction moratorium expires in about 2 weeks at the end of March. And NAR tells us to expect that to get extended till September, maybe, likely. And this $500 million is going to go a long way to keeping tenants in the property and protecting landlords who in many cases haven't been paid for months. And y'all know in South Carolina, you need at least 3 months of rent just to pay the property taxes. And that doesn't include insurance and maintenance and everything else that a landlord needs to pay, including their mortgage. So these funds are going to go a long, long way. It needed enabling legislation to get the money on the street. The realtors brought this to the attention of Merle Smith. He's the Ways and Means Committee chairman in the House. Immediately they jumped on it. The bill just passed the House, is in the Senate. And I expect in the next couple of weeks, at the very least, to have it on the governor's desk. And the program most likely will be run through SC Housing, which is the State Housing Authority. And if y'all have seen, they had a program called SC Stay. They had about $25 million from another federal pot of money that they that they put out for mortgage and rental assistance earlier this year. And they ran that program very efficiently, and it was very popular. They ran out of that 25 million in about 2 weeks. So as soon as we get information about how to apply, where to apply, and such, we'll get that out to you as soon as possible. But we've been pushing that issue very hard to get it done through the legislature, and Governor McMaster and the leadership in the House and Senate have been very, very willing to help and been very cooperative in that regard. I was telling Billy before we started, on a national level, the CARES Act, we did a huge update on that. NAR's got a great update on that. I'm sure you've seen the links to it. I won't go through all those details, but there's, again, more support for independent contractors, more PPP and other emergency loan monies for our firms that need it. Fortunately, in South Carolina, that population of realtors and companies that need that assistance is not as great as it is in some other states. We weren't shut down for months at a time like Pennsylvania and New York, and some places are still under stay-at-home orders, and it's a mess. But we've been fortunate in our state. Obviously, don't want to downplay the personal, the emotional impact that COVID has had on many of our lives. But we've been very, very blessed to be able to continue to do our business even under those restrictions. So it's been a lot of good takeaways from a really bad situation. So we've got also you may have read in the news. I don't know how many of you read Inman News or other real estate updates. Inman News had an article this week that I was misleading, I think, I think that's a nice way of putting it, but it made it sound like Congress was getting ready to end independent contractor status for realtors, which would require brokers to have only employees, not independent contractors. That type of situation would have, a little bit of impact on our business, right? I would expect half of the 1.6 million realtors to disappear almost overnight, if that were the case. But it's not the case. It's the legislation provides exemptions for states that have carve-outs for real estate independent contractors, which South Carolina does, something we lobbied for and got years and years ago. And frankly, NAR says that the bill has very little chance of even passing because of the lack of support in the Senate. So my caution to you is, don't believe everything you read on the internet. And if you've got a question about something that's happening in the industry, reach out to Billy first and foremost. She can get you to the right source, straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, so that we're not engaged in rumoring and misleading information that causes our members to freak out. And we don't like freakouts. We like keeping everybody calm and moving forward. So the last thing I'll talk about, Morris, is our DEI initiative. I wanted you to talk about that for a second, but I wanted to introduce Tiara Pitts. I don't know if Tiara is still with us. She was here earlier. There's Tiara. Hey, good morning. Tiara is the newest member of the SCR team. She's our Director of Fair Housing Policy, a new position that was created out of our diversity task force that was put in place last year, working with some consultants out of North Carolina that helped us with kind of framing, how do we address these issues in South Carolina? And Morris, so I'll let you jump in there. And
yeah, so we're glad to have Tiara on board, obviously, and welcome to her. And when you get a chance, introduce yourself to her. We're excited to have her on board and working with us. And the Fair Housing Conference coming up is going to be great. It'll be a good way for you to really dive in, but I also urge everybody to go. Charlie Oppler issued a challenge to all committee members of NAR, and it was to go through and take the Fairhaven simulator. I don't know, has anybody on here done that yet? It is, I really was blown away by it. I thought it was a really nice way to sort of introduce you to it and go through the process. And I enjoyed doing that. It's a virtual simulator that is real life situations that you actually could have coming through your business. And it shows, and you go through and handle it that way. And Nick just posted a link to it on there. The other is to take the At Home with Diversity course. They actually offered it for free. I believe it was on March the 1st, I think, wasn't it, Nick, that they offered it?
It was, yes.
But they do, I think they still have a discount on it moving forward. So if you get a chance, do that. And then let's see, what was the third part of it? I'm drawing a blank on the third part. It was
Implicit bias video.
yeah, the bias videos, yes, which are very good also, and they're great. So I'd urge everybody on this call and to take a look at it, and then get your office to take a look at it, because they were very good tools. Just to sort of, it's always a good thing to check and make sure that you're following those rules.
It is. I agree, Morris. I know many of you are veterans in the industry and are very familiar with fair housing laws, and I get a lot of questions. Why do we need more fair housing training? Take that. Go to that course that NAR set up. It's like an online. It's an online simulation of several real estate transactions, and a lot of people think when we talk about fair housing that we're talking about race-based discrimination or race-based issues, and it's much, much broader than that. Most real estate agents get tripped up in areas that you would never even think about. How many of you have agents that are submitting what we call love letters with offers to sellers, trying to get an advantage, in their presentation of their offer? Those love letters can create fair housing issues without even thinking about it. A buyer says, "Hey, I love the backyard of this property. I can see my kids playing in the backyard and having a great time." And suddenly the seller thinks, "Oh, kids. I have kids. I love kids." And suddenly you're making a decision based on familial status and unknowingly discriminating against the single family, the individual or the mom or the husband and wife that don't have children. And you're not even thinking about, that you're making a fair housing choice there. And by the way, Austin and I will tell you, don't do love letters. They can only cause problems, and they're not a good idea. But we can talk about that some other time if y'all don't want to talk about that today. But the initiative that we're tackling at the association, I think is going to be a game changer. It's going to be good for our members' business, and it's also the right thing to do, right? But we can all, I think, be on the same page when we talk about improving our business and increasing our business, and moving forward from there. So, Billy, those were the kind of the quick topics that we had. I don't know if there are any other topics you want to open it up, or any other questions.
That was on my list for you guys too. Do we have any questions from anybody on the call for Nick or Morris or Austin or anything on those topics?
I have a question. For the Identigo and the fingerprinting and backgrounds, is it backgrounds every 6 years too, or just the fingerprints every 6 years?
Austin, I don't know. I think everything is now on a 6-year cycle. Is that right?
The fingerprint based background check. I don't think they're just taking your fingerprint to put in the file. I think they're doing something with it.
They're going to do another background check. That would make sense. Yeah.
But like I said, we can certainly get more information about future cycles. The commission for about 2.5 years has been so locked in on getting through this renewal cycle, and they had to get additional staff for this. There's now that they're taking in fingerprints, that's confidential information. They actually had to create a SCIF within the real estate commission building. Only certain staff are able to go into that room. So they've been so kind of focused on this first one that I think they're kind of going, let's figure out future cycles when we get through this first 30,000 or so fingerprints.
Yeah, I don't know how much y'all read about that case in Spartanburg with Koluk, but you know, when he applied for his real estate license, he wrote, and I've read his application. He had a 2-page attachment where he talked about that he was arrested in Arizona. It was a misunderstanding. He had taken a young lady across state lines on a date, and the dad didn't like him, and that the dad had called the police, and because he had taken an underage girl across state lines, he got arrested and spent a 1.5 years in jail. And nobody at the staff level at the commission thought to call Arizona and to confirm this story. You know, they granted him a license. Well, in Arizona, his police record told a completely different story, right? He had kidnapped and raped a young woman and held her hostage for days, and the only thing he was right about was the length of time he spent in jail. And so, you know, when you hear stories like that, and Austin and I have seen individuals appear before the commission that, you know, testified that they had, you know, 3 DUIs in the last 6 years. You know, folks that have just gotten out of jail for mortgage fraud. You know, those are the kind of individuals that, you know, everybody deserves redemption, and everybody deserves to work, but not everybody deserves to have a real estate license. And those are the kind of things this is set to protect. So appreciate y'all's time. Do y'all have any other questions? Anything not related to fingerprinting? It's funny, as members of the bar, Byron and I and Tiara too, we were all fingerprinted when we applied for our law licenses. But I've never had to resubmit them again. They know where to find me, I think. But you know, with the addition of Tiara, I didn't realize this until somebody had brought it up. But you know, we have 12 staff at the association, and now we have 4 attorneys on staff. So the good guys are on your team.
Any other questions? One thing I wanted to remind everybody about is the Fair House. I mean the Good Life Initiative through SCR. Please check that out if you haven't seen it yet, because it's really been well done, and we really are going to keep working on that and keep that in the forefront. So take a look at it if you hadn't yet, and remind yourself about it, and please keep it circulating. And that's all I've got.
Thank y'all for your time. Thank you, Billy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn it over to Candace now.
Thank you, Candace.
You're welcome. Thank you guys for coming. I think this is my first meeting with all the brokers, so I'm excited that I recognize a bunch of names and see some faces that I know. So you guys are the ones I tip my hat off to, because I go to my BIC with a bunch of questions. So just because I know agents are coming to you with all the craziness in the market. So thank you for what you do and standing behind each of the agents that you are leading. So thank you for that. I just wanted to come on just briefly. we are kicking off a lot of our committees this year. And I thank you guys as brokers for getting the message out to your agents about our committees and everything that we have going on. So we have our YPN meet and greet. I was trying to check the weather. I don't know. I think the tornado storm or whatever we had going on in the area has passed us. So hopefully if it has, and we have good weather, we'll still be able to go outside today and to the new Cambria Hotel, downtown Rock Hill, to the rooftop bar. And Erin Swan, she's with Reinhardt, and she is going to be our YPN chair. So we're super excited to have her on board, and she's having her first meet and greet. We have a sponsor there tonight, and we would just love the opportunity. Even, you know, it's for everybody. It's not just for our young professionals to network. It's for all of us realtors to network with one another. And so we would love for everybody to be able to drop in if they can. It's from 6 to 9 this evening at the Cambria Downtown Hotel in Rock Hill, South Carolina. So if you have time, please feel free to come. And if you can't come to that, we'll have some more things that you can participate in. So we would look forward to you coming to that. Another thing, we have our March membership meeting that's coming up on the 24th. I'm super excited because we do have Rod Atkinson and John Reinhardt will be at that meeting, and they will be talking to us. And it's a great opportunity to talk to our commissioner, ask any questions. So if you guys have any questions that you want to ask, please send those questions to Billy so she can go ahead and give them a list of things to be expecting to talk about. So we would love that opportunity to have some things ahead of time, but it's a great time for that meeting. So that's from 11 to 12:30 on March 24th. So we look forward to that meeting. The other thing is that I'm really excited about Fair Housing Month. Excuse me. Fair Housing Month is Stories from Your Backyard, and that's on April 28th. And, you know, fair housing, DEI, these things are like stuff we're talking about a lot these days, but it's stuff that we need to talk about because things go wrong in real estate. And this is stuff that happens right here in our own neck of the woods. So I'm excited to hear about some different things because we all don't want to go to real estate jail, and we all want to be able to service our clients and do the right thing, but people make mistakes. And so it'll be good to hear from these mistakes from an actual fair housing investigator. And that's going to be at 2 p.m. So be on the lookout for more information on that, because we would love the opportunity for you to join in and have your agents join in, because that's going to be some actual stories from our neck of the woods. So that's going to be good to hear. And then that's a way that we can learn from other people's mistakes so we don't do the same. And we have our broker summit coming up. So I'm super excited about our broker summit. That's going to be on June 16th at Napa in Kingsley and Fort Mill. So I hope each and every one of you are excited to come to that. We did try to see if we would be able to do that in person and do it on Zoom. We came to the conclusion that we won't be able to do it on Zoom. We'll have certain things that you might be able to see through our Zoom mechanism, but we would love the opportunity for you to come. You're going to be able to space out for that. And then at that time, we're hoping that more people will have the vaccine and be inoculated so that they feel comfortable coming out for that. So we look forward to that as well. Another one of our committees that's getting started this year that I'm super excited about is Jerry Ann Jackson is our community service chair, and she's going to be having her first meeting next week. So if you have agents that want to get involved, or you yourself as a broker, I know you already have a lot on your plate, but if you yourself want to get involved further, we would love for you to let us know. We have lots of committees that we can get up and running if we have folks that would like to serve and, come out here and do things to help the agents, because it helps all of us when one steps up. So we definitely would appreciate that. And then for our community service and our YPN chairs, they would love for you to participate in the things that they have that are going to be going on and taking place, you know, in that regard. So we welcome your suggestions, and, you know, we look forward to serving you this year, and we're super excited. And I'm just glad that I got to come on today, you know, just to see you guys and see some familiar faces, and then see some familiar names, and, you know, and have that opportunity. So, oh, for the one for our broker summit, make sure you register in advance. So Billy has that information, but we would really like for you to go ahead and register and get that on your calendar, because we do look forward for you coming out. I see a message. Oh, Jerry Ann put a note here in the chat section. So check that chat section out, because she was saying you can email her if you would like to serve on the community service chair. Thank you, Jerry Ann. You know, actually, Jerry Ann, would you like to speak right now? I mean, you can if you want to. Okay, I don't think she wants to speak.
I was unmuting, Candace. Yes, yes, we are.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, we are definitely looking for committee members to serve on the Community Service Committee. As realtors, we are always in the community, but I think it would be a great opportunity to also serve the community. So like Candace said, we are meeting next week to get ideas. It's not going to be a heavy lift. There are a lot of great organizations that already exist in the community that we can partner with. So if any of your agents would like to get involved and serve the community, please shoot me an email and I can forward you the invite for the meeting. Thanks, Candace.
You're welcome. No, thank you. Thank you for stepping up and sharing. I appreciate that. And I think our association definitely appreciates that. My goal for the association this year, just so you guys know, you know, every year, every president has something that they are aiming for and that they're shooting for. My goal is to get us to have a little bit more membership movement, involvement, whether that's either coming to our meetings, being more involved, helping throughout the community, getting on one of these chairs or getting one of our chair committees up and running. That is really a strong point that we would like to see, because I feel like if we set the pace now and we get strong leaders in those chair positions, then when Carolyn takes the reins for next year, she's our president-elect, those committees can move forward, and then natural progression, new leaders will take on that chair role throughout time, and we could just keep them going. So if you know of somebody that's in our association that you think would be a great fit for some of our different committees, but they may not have thought about, oh, I don't know if I'm ready to embark on a leadership role, give them that little nudge and give them that little push, because that's all people need at times. They just need a little bit of encouragement. And, you know, we really appreciate anybody willing to step up and help. So I'm here if you ever need me. You can feel free to reach out to me. I think Billy has sent my information out, you know, and if you need me, you can just give me a call. I know we've called our brokers throughout the year, just checking in on you guys and seeing if you need anything from us. But anybody from our board level, anybody from our staff level, or myself, you know, we're here to answer any questions and help. And then if I don't know the question or the answer to the question, Billy does. So I'll definitely get with her and we'll make sure that we can, you know, service you. So I think that's it for me for my little bit of an update. Billy, you can take it.
I'm going to be really quick so I can hand it over to Austin. I wanted to let you guys know first, actually, let me say, I just want to say publicly to Nick, thank you so much for all your help with Identigo and setting that up with the kiosk and everything, and to Austin with the commission liaison, yesterday's meeting, and being able to email him our questions that we weren't clear on. So thank you guys both for your guys' support on that. But I wanted to let you guys know what's going on with Canopy MLS, since that's our MLS partner. They're having a lot of staffing changes in their membership department. They shut down their office a couple days to try to do some training. They're hiring new members. It's going to be a learning process because they're also changing over membership systems to where brokers will be able to update their own information for themselves and agents. Hopefully it will get better. Their goal is to have a turnaround about 5 days. They are keeping us informed as AEs that are involved in that situation. But if you have any questions or concerns or want to know more about that, you can let me know. Hopefully in the next month or two, you'll start seeing a difference. Other thing, your members that are part of Canopy and have the Supra display key. The display key is no longer working and they've been replacing it with remanufactured ones. Everyone's going to have to go to the Supra e-key. That starts tomorrow. It's a little bit of a benefit. You'll no longer have a monthly debit from Supra. It'll just be the quarterly debit from Canopy. You guys should have all got that communication from Canopy MLS. But the big thing is the display keys can be returned to our office in Rock Hill. You do not have to drive all the way to Charlotte to return your display keys. I specifically requested that to save our members travel, because I know they hate driving into Charlotte, that we be a drop-off location. At the end of the turn-in time, I will arrange transportation to Charlotte to drop all of the keys off at once. So if you have any members that still have the old display key, box, and cradle, they can turn those into our office Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And we will keep track of those, and I will turn those into Canopy for you guys.
Hey, Billy.
Any questions? Yes.
Billy, this is Alex. I know that when you originally went to the E key, you had to pay the association a fee, and then you also paid, I guess, Supra a fee. Did you just say that the Supra fee is going away?
From my understanding, with their new contract, because with all of the Canopy surface area, they're combining their Century and Supra contracts. So as of tomorrow, that monthly debit from Supra should be going away, and you'll only have the quarterly debit from Canopy.
Cool. Thank you.
So any other questions about what's going on with Canopy or any problems with them? All right. That's all I have. And because of time, I want to go ahead and switch it over to Austin. He can stay a little bit past 2:30 if you guys can, but he does have a meeting at 3. So Austin, you want to go ahead and start? And I think stay for the draft updates, you guys can go ahead and log off, but you're welcome to stay. Thanks, Nick.
So what I can do, since I know we had this till 2:30, is I can kind of do the 3 main takeaways for each form. That way, any of you who had this scheduled to 2:30 can log off, and then in the time after 2:30, we can kind of go into each form in a little bit more detail if you'll have any questions. All these forms right now are on our forms website under draft forms. We do not have a official launch date. I'm guessing it will be sometime in April, but we do not have an official launch date at this time. Did want to give a follow-up on a forms front from the Real Estate Commission meeting yesterday. They did vote to update the seller disclosure to where you now look in Roman numeral 2, where it talks about your roof, and it says it asks the date of the roof / the date the roof is installed / modified. They're now going to sort of split that question. So the first question is now just going to read, what was the year, when was the roof installed? And then the second question will be, have there been any repairs or leaks, repairs, or modifications to the roof? And if so, what are the dates on those? Because the issue we were seeing was that, maybe it's a 20-year-old roof, but they maybe replaced a few shingles 4 years ago, and people are putting 2017 on the seller disclosure, and you're going, oh, well, does that mean it's a 4-year-old roof when it's actually a 20-year-old roof? So now you're going to put the age of the roof first, and then if there's been any modifications, repairs, or leaks, the dates on the second line there. So that form change will be coming effective May 1st from the commission. As soon as we get sort of a draft copy of that, we will certainly put that in our weekly newsletter, make sure members see that in advance. Okay. And the first form we were going to go over was the forms committee. And so all these forms changes were made by the 2020 forms committee that Your local representative on that committee is Jay Reinhardt. So if you like anything you see today, thank Jay. If you don't, then it's my fault. But make sure that these will be on the website. They will not be, you can tell these have the draft watermark and highlights. Do not use these until the official launch date. So the first thing, the big 3 changes we made to the release, brokers are no longer signing the release form. But so we've gotten rid of the language in that first paragraph about third-party broker beneficiaries assignees. You guys will not sign the form anymore, but you are still protected under that hold harmless language that is in the middle of the contract. So you no longer will have the argument of, well, hey, the parties have signed this, but one of the brokers won't sign the form. The brokers are no longer signing the escrow form or the release form. The release form currently essentially just has a bunch of blanks and says, what do you want to do with the money? The committee said, let's make this simpler. We broke it down into 4 options. So either you're going to put the amount of money in dispute, whatever it is to the buyer, option 1, to the seller, option 2. You're going to split it in some way. That's option 3. Option 4 is the big fundamental change. So option 4 essentially gives you the option as the parties to say, we're going to terminate this contract. We agree. We want this contract to be null and void, but we still dispute the release of this earnest money. So, but what we are going to do now is by signing this form, both of us are going to request that the escrow agent, whether that be the law firm, the buyer's broker, seller broker, whoever it is, to go ahead and file the appropriate action with the court of competent jurisdiction. So go ahead and file that interpleader action to help us resolve this dispute. And we understand that we have the right to legal counsel. So essentially option 4 is we both agree this contract is done. We want to terminate this contract, but we're still fighting over the earnest money. Now we're going to sign, we'll check option 4, sign this, and then the escrow agent will be empowered to then go file the interpleader action with the court of competent jurisdiction. Is there any questions on 518? Okay. And just as a caveat, any form, if the forms changes as you see them on the website, if there are any spacing or syntax issues, those will absolutely be cured before the forms go live. Some of these with the formatting gets to be a little tricky, but when we send those out to the forms providers, they will clarify that issue. So the next form we're going to go over is 504. This is your buyer sale contingency form. So this is the form that is an addendum to the contract when the buyer needs to sell their current home to buy the new home. So for this example, I've decided to move to Rock Hill, but to move to Rock Hill, I have to sell my house in Columbia. So we're going to put in their buyer's property. This is going to be my property in Columbia because this is going to be attached to a Rock Hill contract. We're then going to ask you, hey, is your property, Austin, is your property in Columbia, is it currently under contract? And if so, is a ratified contract, redacted contract attached? And if it is, we're going to go over Form 500 in a second. I'm going to let you know, hey, my property is my property listed? If so, on what date, and is it by what brokerage, and is it in the MLS? This last paragraph in number 1 is a pretty big change. So what we would see before is on 504 is we would have on the contract to buy a house in Rock Hill, Austin, you need to have sold your house by the closing deadline, which would be, let's say the closing was April 30th. Well, April 28th, I still haven't even gotten an offer on my house. So you and I both know that this deal is not going to close because I can't afford 2 mortgages. But we still have to kind of go through the dance for 2 more days. So what we now have in this paragraph in number 1 is, Austin, by a certain date, you need to have your property in Columbia under contract. If you do not have it under contract within that time period, then either party can terminate by delivering notice. So the seller at some point would say, hey, if you haven't gotten your house under contract by this point, there's no chance of you being able to meet your buyer sale deadline. So we're going to be able to, either of us can terminate at that point. Paragraph 2 is where we have that buyer sale deadline. Previously, we had, where you could do it so many days prior to closing or by closing. We said, let's just make this simpler so it is within by a certain date. So I will have to, the contract for the property in Rock Hill is contingent on me marketing and closing on my property in Columbia no later than a certain date. I'm sure many of you were asking, well, hey, Austin, what happens if in paragraph 1 and section 1, you said your house has to be under contract by March 25th, but we're not closing on the house in Rock Hill until April 20th. What happens if between March 25th and April 20th, that contract for your house falls through? That's where this second highlighted portion in number 2 takes over, which we say, hey, if the contract, if something happens between the date in section 1 and the buyer sale deadline, then either party can terminate by delivering notice. No other real major changes until we get to number 4. Number 4 is sort of the guts of the whole form. So on our current 504, the seller can essentially put the buyer on the clock by delivering delivering notice that they have received a backup offer. This has now been changed to a acceptance of a backup contract. So you cannot essentially make me put me as the original buyer or the primary first buyer on the clock unless you say, hey, I've already accepted a backup contract for this house. You cannot simply do this by an offer. It's going to be by an accepted contract. So what you're going to tell me is, hey, Austin, you have essentially 4 options. You're either going to deliver SCR Form 500, which is a new form we'll show you in a second, saying, hey, I'm still good to close. I still have a contract in my house in Columbia. And the only thing that is the only contingency that's still out there is financing because financing runs to closing. Do note that in the current version of 504, the contingencies include financing and repairs. Repairs is no longer a contingency that can be used by the buyer. So the only way that works for me is if I show you that my house is still scheduled to close in Columbia and the only thing that is pending is financing. Any other contingency would not qualify under A. B would be, you would say, hey, I understand you got a backup offer. Don't worry, I can remove the sales contingency and still buy your house, either because I've got enough cash or I've got something from my lender showing you I can afford 2 mortgages. C would be the option that would say, hey, I'll actually swap places. I'll become the backup contract and this new backup contract can become primary. And D just says, hey, we couldn't make this work. Either party can terminate by delivering notice of 313. The choices that are laid out in paragraph 4 of 504 are going to be done through 505. So 505 is going to be the companion document for 504. So if you ever use 504, make sure that at some point you're going to be using 505 and 500. So if you sort of have at your office where you keep forms, and kind of connected based on how likely you are to use one with the other, 500, 504, 505 are going to be companion documents. Is there any questions on 504? Okay. All right, 505. So this is where you're actually going to make the options. So 505 will be used when you come to me as the listing agent and say, hey, Austin, we actually got a backup. We've accepted a backup contract on the house in Rock Hill. You're on the clock pursuant to whatever we put in paragraph 4 of form 504. So the first part is going to be checked by the seller. Seller really has 2 options. Hey, we've accepted a backup contract and here's a redacted subsequent contract showing you that we got it. So you actually are aware that we're not making it up. Or we can say, hey, by the way, we accepted a backup contract, but we still love yours more. So you're still in primary position. We just wanted to let you know we have a backup. The next is going to be that the buyer is going to have a few options. So these are all the options I laid out before. So I, as the buyer, I'm going to check a box and say, hey, I'm still under contract set to close in Columbia. The only thing that's outstanding is financing. So that's the first option. Second option, I can remove the sales contingency. And here's something from my lender showing you that I've got loan approval. I can afford 2 mortgages. Third box, I'm going to remove this contingency. And here's verification that I got enough cash to close. If I can't fail one of those 3 boxes, then I go to this next option where I'm no longer wanting to be the primary contract, which means I'm either going to agree to be swap places and become the backup, or I'm just going to terminate we're going to terminate by delivering notice. So 505 is where we make all those changes. Where essentially both parties show you what they selected based on 504. So 505 and 504 are going to go hand in hand on that. Any questions on 505? Okay, so the next form is the newest form to our forms library. That is form 500. That's been referenced a bunch. That is going to be by far the shortest form that we have in our forms library. This one should be a real quick I've learned for everyone. Yeah, this one, if I pretty much am going to be able to just read it to you. Yeah. So this is what the buyer is going to use to show you that they've accepted an offer. And it is simply that, hey, buyer has accepted an offer on their property. So it would be 123 Main Street, Columbia, South Carolina on May 17th at, the property is set to close on or before April 12th. And here's a redacted copy of the contract. So when 505 pops up, so when I select that first option on 505, I cannot simply tell you, no, man, we're good. I've got a contract set to close. I'm actually going to have to send you a redacted copy of the contract showing you that, hey, I actually do have a contract set to close. Here's the closing date, and that there's no other contingencies pending. Obviously, any information that does not need to be shared needs to be, blacked out as far as when you're doing redactions. Any questions on 504, 500, or 505, 500, or how those three kind of work together? And I will be doing some longer instructional videos on these, and those should be out shortly. We will do a pretty good aggressive marketing effort about those, as well as I'm working with our communication staff about doing a statewide webinar. So it is not in your interest or my interest to sort of sneak forms into the library without making sure that everyone has an adequate opportunity to learn them. So, and then the last one we did changes on is 330. So this is our sort of our general lots and acreage form, but this can also be used for a boat slip. Probably 90% of the changes in this form were simply to make it match up with the changes we made on to 300 and 310 last year. This is so things such as this form still included business days. Business days has been removed from this contract, just like it was in the residential contract. Everything is going to calendar days. A couple little minor things we did. Also, this form still had some earnest money language in there about automatic disbursement of earnest money. As anyone who's listened to me talk in the last few years knows, I keep letting you know, earnest money can only be dispersed through mutual agreement of parties or a court order. So any contractual disbursement of earnest money language should not be in there. So we've removed that language. We moved up language about special assessments that was previously in the adjustment section. We moved that up to transaction cost. All that essentially is going to say is special assessments that are approved before closing are the responsibility of the seller. Special assessments approved after closing are those responsibility of the buyer. Sort of makes sense there. A couple of things we added to this form. We included, we took language that we had from our form 391 about deed restrictions and a soil and water test, and we moved those to the main form here. You do actually see in paragraph 4, we did clean up that up a little bit because obviously this is a lot of time vacant land to say, hey, all man-made objects, our items have to be removed from the property unless other parties otherwise agree. You can't just leave, rusting tractors there unless the buyer wants you to leave the rusting tractor on the land. The other one we did, so we did the soil and water test, we did the deed restrictions. Days with the number of increased storms we've had in the state, sometimes you aren't even able to get to the property within 5 days because the roads may be blocked. You may have to evacuate, things of that sort. So we did expand that out to 14 days. Otherwise, like I said, all these changes are pretty much in line with what we did in 330 and 310 and 300. Changing the same, adding dates to financing. The due diligence language, we have now made that mirror. That is the identical due diligence language from the residential contract. So hopefully for you guys, trying to make it as seamless of a transition between the forms as possible, that there's obviously, with this being vacant land, there's going to be some things in there that are not in the residential contract, like building permits or rezoning, but at least there's a lot of things in there that should be very similar. You're not going to have to worry about, hey, which of my contracts have business days, which ones have calendar days? They'll now all have calendar days. They'll all have hard dates on earnest money. They'll all have hard dates on financing. So hopefully try to help with that. Paragraph 25, we did make a change for rollback taxes. Essentially now you'll have three options. Seller's going to pay them, buyer's going to pay them, or we're going to split them. Otherwise, I mean, that's about it. Again, for the forms, we're working with our forms providers about when we're going to get these sort of done. My goal is sometime in April, but if it's not in April, it would certainly be early May, but it will certainly be late April, early May. It will definitely be before July. So that is sort of the new forms in about 15 minutes. I'm happy to kind of go into any of those in any more detail, but I understand that you guys, I'm already 6 minutes over my time, and nothing like staying over to talk about forms, but I'm happy to do it for anyone who would like to stick around, but otherwise I'll go on mute.
So does anybody have any questions for anybody on the call?
I have a question for Austin. Are the forms going to be copyrighted in 2021, all the forms, or are we going to continue to use the 2020 date?
I have been working with our forms providers to get that fixed.
Okay,
Yes,
so it will be. Okay.
But that does not change the effectiveness of the form. But yes, that is an issue we are aware of and have been trying to work with our forms providers to remedy.
Thank you.
When did you say the anticipated use date would be, Austin?
We don't have a hard date because it will not be this month. Late April, early May. We will make it abundantly clear when they are. As I try to tell people, it is not in your interest for us to sort of roll out forms and make them live without letting you guys know, without plenty of notice, and it is not in my best interest to also just throw new forms out there without education and proper time for you guys to look at them.
All right, thank you.
When we have a date, we will make it abundantly clear, and I will be sure to share that with all the local AEs so they're aware of it as well.
Any other questions?
I did want to make one note. It's something we did not cover that came up the Real Estate Commission yesterday. The Real Estate Commission did vote yesterday to extend virtual education through the end of the year. So they had gotten a lot of good feedback from members across the state that they have enjoyed being able to take their CE or pre-licensing courses online. That has been allowed or extended through December 31st of this year.
Are they going to re-examine it, Austin, after that date? Do you know?
I think they're still trying to assess whether it's going to be sort of a permanent fixture or not, but they have definitely decided through the end of the year to continue that.
Thank you for that update. All right. Any other questions? Those still left on the call, I hope that this information was helpful for you guys and useful. But if there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and end the call now. And our next broker update will be actually the Broker Summit in June, which we do have a registration fee of $25. And that's just to make sure people show up for the food, but I promise it'll be well worth more than that for you guys to come to our Broker Summit June 16th at Napa. But at that, I think we're going to go ahead and end today's call, and everyone please stay safe. Thank you so much for coming, everyone.
Thank you all for having me.
Thanks, Austin.